right, so yeah, this thing's gonna get it go. So I don't know if I can follow the dance routine. I don't know if I can do that. And I will tell you what I wrote down like maybe about 5 or 6 sentences, which can equate to about 25 minutes of me talking. But my intent is to talk for about 20 minutes. My understanding of waves, as we are thinking about it now, if you look at the program, it says I'm going to talk about empowering local youth, fostering resilience and leadership, and enhancing young people's career prospects. I'm not going to talk to you about recruiting Marines, which is what I do. What I'm going to talk to you about is kind of human capital, which is what we're all dealing in, right? We're all getting it from the same place. One thing I want to explain to you, though, that is different for all the military services and the public sector in general is that when you're in the private sector, even if you're nonprofit, you hire people and you screen people to do a thing that you need to have done. We are not afforded that opportunity. In other words, I don't pick people who come to my unit. They appear there. And once they are there, I can't go, you don't fit very well for this, go away. So because of that, it causes me to have a different framework of leadership and how we approach what we're doing. Because we're not talking about hiring 10 people. We're talking about, I'm in charge of all the recruiters for the Marine Corps west of the Mississippi, in Alaska, Hawaii, and Guam. All of those people who choose to take the challenge then come to MCRD San Diego. What that turns into is into about 17,000 young people every fiscal year, approximately. So if you're at the industrial level, your approach to empowering or developing talent is restricted to that model of you're going to get people who have signed up, who have talents, who are growing. And my population for the Marine Corps, we recruit between the ages of 18 and 23. We don't go higher than that without a waiver because of the physical demanding nature of how we do recruit training and how we train Marines. But if you think about that age group, that is high school, college, graduate level, and college participant, that group of young people that we're all actually looking at. We're all looking at them together to do stuff, right? The other way I want you to think about this is I view service is service. In other words, service to your community can take a lot of different forms. A lot of times people look at me and say, thank you for your service. And I go that, one, you're worth it. But the other thing that I try to tell people is that if you're serving in any way, shape, or form in your community, you're doing something very similar to me. I've just chosen that I can do it under a different set of circumstances. Let's just put it that way, right? So I feel that I'm inclined to where I can do that in a different set of circumstances better than the next person, or at least I believe I can. And because of that, I do it in that framework. But to tell you the truth, it's all the same thing. We work with what we got. And what it starts with to me is you have to develop trust. Then you need to inspire. And then after you develop trust and inspire, you need to train them to do what they need to do. And generally speaking, I just talked to a group of young people today, and I told them, I said, set goals. We always tell them to do that, right? But I tell them to fall in love with the journey. Because the goal can be something that you miss. But the real work that develops the human is happening during the journey. It's their process. It's the discipline that they apply. It's the ability to be open-minded, to learn, to be taught, that are the things that are critical. So how do we do this in the Marine Corps? You might be like, hey, so what do y'all do in the Marine Corps? Because I always have to tell people, I got to let you know a secret. We recruit human beings. So because we do that, there could be anybody in this room could point to some article or some scenario where a Marine is being a human. They're not robots. We don't need to do any special controls. So what do we do at boot camp? Here's what we do. What we do is we take those who are willing to accept the challenge and we put them through a successive set of small challenges with positive leadership so that at the end they believe, in most cases unjustifiably so, that they can do something. Well, I mean, that's important, right? Okay? So if there's a building and people are shooting and I go run in there, I don't need people going, I don't know if I can do that. I need people going, yeah. And they run in. Now, how does that look at boot camp? Most people show up at boot camp and they're like, okay, we did initial training with them. We go, you're going to run 3 miles. They're like, I've never run 3 miles before. They run 3 miles. We make sure they're okay. They go, oh, wow, I guess I can. Then we make them get in the pool and we're like, hey, you're going to have to swim 50 meters. And they're like, wow, I don't know if I can do that. Then they do it. We train them to do it. Then after a while, we tell them to go on the confidence course. And we have this thing called the Stairway to Heaven, which is like a ladder structure that goes up about 30 feet into the air. The boards get further apart as you go higher. They have to go to the top and go over. We got mats around it and everything. We're not trying to harm them. But what happens is when they first look at it, it's very imposing. But then we yell at them and they go over the top. Am I right? Now, while we're yelling at them, they're upset. But when they get on the opposite side of the obstacle, they go, wow, I did it. We have a rappel tower. We throw the ropes over the side and we attach them to it. And we go, you're going to go down that rope. There are recruits up there that are like, there's no way. Then they go down it. So at the end of boot camp, I usually talk to the honor graduates that we have, and I ask them a question. I go, okay, you made it through this and you did better than everybody else. What can you not do? And they look at me and they go, there's nothing I can't do, sir. And I go, exactly. That's what we're trying to make. That's the real secret sauce of the Marine Corps. When we're asked to do things in combat, on average, I am more concerned about what my Marine is going to try to do than that he won't do it. You know what I mean? Now, this is relevant as to what we're talking about because the application of this doesn't have to be an earth-shattering thing, but it is a process by which you're taking young people and you're figuring out how can we set them up with challenges in a controlled environment by which they can fail, but not fail to the point where they can't get back up. That's really all we're trying to do. Okay, at boot camp, we got drill instructors, we got all this motivation, we got a lot of stuff. But the application can be done in our local community. So part of this resilience thing, I came to a conclusion. I've seen it. Now, not only have I been in the Marine Corps I joined the Marine Corps 37 years ago as an enlisted Marine and went to boot camp. And I didn't think I was going to be here. I thought I was going to get out, use the GI Bill or whatever. My son joined in 2014, got out in 18, and he is on his own. Then he did go to college, and he did everything I told my mom I was going to do. But with all that being said, my experience also is not in just doing that. I've got 4 adult children. So what I've witnessed is that we think of resiliency as a whole bunch of stuff. I tell you what, the secret to resiliency is make young people good at something. Just make them good at something. Most people need to be good at something. At something. They need to have something they can fall back on that they own and they go, I'm good at that. And if I am, I'm not so bad. I might be bad at that, but I'm good at this. That's been my experience with my kids, and it's also the experience with my recruiters and my drill instructors. When they are good at their job, they are far more resilient to the challenges of their job. When their self-perception is that they are good at it. So think to yourselves, imagine just being at work all day and somebody says, you suck all day. And you're there all day, and you have a significant other, dog, whatever you got at home, they come home and they go, where you been all day? What's going on? Why aren't you participating here? What's going on? Because even your dogs do that, right? They get really agitated, like, hey, what are we doing? Where's it going? I've missed you all day. Let's go outside. What are you doing, right? And you're going, man. And so after a while, you're just like, man, what's going on? But if you're good at your job and you feel fulfilled, you feel like you've had purpose and you've made impact, you can kind of deal with some stuff. You're like, okay, that's really what our young people need. And I'm one of those parents, I'm one of those Generation Xers where I wanted my kids to have it better than me. And so my initial instinct was to, guard them. But my wife, and we're, going on 29 years together, my wife is a Montessori school teacher. And so my wife was like, hey, we got to teach them through experience. So we created certain environments where we thought the wheels might come off, but we're ready to go because they needed the wheels to come off. One of the examples that I give, which my wife actually feels sad about now because her heart is much larger than mine, was with our oldest son. So I always tell the story about him because I'm also proud of him, okay? But when he was in high school, we were still checking homework near the senior year. That doesn't mean you're gonna do well in college, just in case we got some parents here. If you got some parents here, if you gotta do that, that might not be a good sign that things are gonna go well. So we had a simple thing for him. We said, hey, we'll pay, just don't get an F. This is your job. We'll pay, just don't get an F. I didn't say get a B or nothing. I said, just don't get an F. A couple months into the semester, got a phone call. I was like, son, I don't know what you're gonna do. My wife regrets that because she feels like we were too hard on her. But I was like, nah, that's it. Hey, we knew this was coming. What you gonna do? You better find some money or find some roommates or get a job or something because you're cut off. He comes home, gets a job. Next thing you know, I'm at church one night. He shows up with a USMC shirt on and has all his hair cut off. Didn't ask me, didn't tell me about it. Joins the Marine Corps. After 4 years, I asked him, how's it going? He goes, I don't think it's for me. I said, fine, it's not for you. Get out, I'm not stuck with you. You did. Gets out, GI Bill with like over $30-some thousand in the bank. So when they were kids, I'll tell you this because it's funny too, I'm proud of them, but it's so funny to me. So when they were kids, we gave them check cards. We had little checking accounts for them. We gave money, right? Because when your little kid goes to the store, he's like, I want some candy. And we're like, how much money do you have? Because you're not using mine. Technically it's still my money. But, it wasn't like I had my 10-year-old working at a sweatshop or something. Right? So, but you know what I'm saying? We were teaching them, hey, there's a thing going on. So one day my wife is sitting on the couch and she's looking at our accounts and she goes, why is there $30,000 in Marcus's account? I'm like, call him. He's in Hawaii, right? Still in the Marine Corps. I'm like, call him, man. This guy's selling drugs or what? What's happening? I don't know why there's that much money in there. We call him. He's like, what's going on? We woke him up, because I was like freaking out for real. And so he's like, yeah, I put some in there and I put some money over here. And I was like, where you get all this money from? He's like, well, Dad, they're paying me. I bought that used car. I'm eating it in the chow hall. I live in the barracks. What you want me to do with it? I was like, can't argue with that. He gets out. Then he goes to North Carolina A&T. He has a GI Bill. He graduates summa cum laude with an IT degree, and now he works at Epic Healthcare in Madison, Wisconsin. So thank you, because I am proud of him. But here's what I want to bring up. Same kid, he's my kid. There was a kid before the Marine Corps, and there was a kid after the Marine Corps. The kid after the Marine Corps called us up and literally said, Dad, I can't believe it. I'm in class for 16 hours in the entire week. He's like, what's going on? I'm like, yeah, exactly. He's like, yeah, I got tons of time. This is easy. But he had to go through some stuff. He had to experience some stuff. He had to get there. So I'm not saying to you that the Marine Corps is for everybody. I've been for a long period of time. My son wasn't, so I gave you the two different extremes. But what I'm sharing with this group is that the principle remains the same. There's a process by which young people have to be able to win and lose so that they can own the winning. And if they own it, that winning, they inherently become resilient and eventually will be willing to take new challenges. And the secret for us to figure out how to do in our local communities is to take people and inspire them to try, create environments in which they can try and fail, but not completely come off the rails, so that we can help them figure out how to win with them winning, not us winning, so they own the winning, which means they'll be more inclined to try again in the process moving forward. That is what I believe we do in the Marine Corps. I believe we kind of set up this environment in which we're constantly trying to improve and foster. I've been in the Marine Corps a while, and I've probably done more than most. I share this usually with the educators I talk to. Everybody knows that there's three things that the Marine Corps promises. What we promise is that we will always make Marines. We will win the nation's battles. Battles, not the war, so battles, part of it. And we send good citizens back to America, back into the population. That is what we say we do. That is what we believe we do. And I believe this process that I've described to you is how that happens. But the thing that I will have to caveat with is the Marine Corps is probably dealing with the most volatile portion of the population, man. I mean, they're 18 to 23 years old, right? Just go back and think to yourself, like, hey, man, what were you trying to do then, right? And especially Marines, right? We attract a different type. We do. We attract a different type. We don't get a lot of bookworms. We get people who are willing to take risks, which means we're dealing with a pretty volatile product. But the thing that we're doing when we execute that is still the same principle, which is this idea that when we're doing it and how we're doing it is general population applicable, because we can't pick exactly who. We create a general qualification requirement to join. We go to high schools and local communities and we describe ourselves and we send young versions of me out there to show what we are. A thing happens between them and the recruiter where they see elements of themselves and what they want to be in the recruiter. Then they say, I'm interested. They want to do it. We set them up. And then when we take them to boot camp, we run them through that process I just told you about. They come out on the backside, but they're still growing up and figuring out what they want to do. Generally speaking, they follow orders, but some don't. That's a hard thing for people to think about. I always tell people it's like a weird thing to discover that they might not do what you say. Doesn't matter what you think at the moment, because one thing that young people lack, which make them very useful in certain circumstances, is the ability to really understand long-term consequences. So we get heavy doses of that, but we still get the best of America, I think, who are willing to do that. Because there's an interesting thing that I also tell people that I'm very honored to be around these young people, because in the midst of the political divide in our nation, the AI rabbit holes you can go down and just figure out which one you want to go down, right? Either America's going to be the best it's ever been or we're all going to die. Just play a game with the AI and start just clicking on different interest groups, and it'll autofill and give you some pretty interesting stuff. But in that environment, there are young people who are still willing to support and defend the values within the Constitution. Because what I always try to tell people is that that is the basis of what this is all about, the values within the Constitution. If you think about everybody in the history of America who has fought for America to be better, they've never said the Constitution's bad. They've used it as the guiding light to challenge us to live up to the values within it, is what they have attempted to do. And these young people are going, yeah, you know, they want to believe in something. They want to believe in something good, and they want to do it. I tell my recruiters sometimes, many of us who are older, we might get frustrated with the young people protesting right now, right? So we'll be like, oh, great, you know, we got some protesters or whatever, right? But here's the thing. Many of those young people believe they're fighting for something. So I'm usually like, hey, go in there and find out if any of them are willing to carry a weapon. We'll bring them on the team. We'll show them how to fight for somebody. But I say that jokingly, but in the essence of what I'm talking about is that the young people that we have today in our generation still want to make a difference. The same way that we might have wanted to make a difference, they want to do it. They're just doing that thing that we all did. They're like, I don't know, is it like this? Is it like that? What should I do? And I think we're struggling with another thing too, is in our information revolution, or I don't know what you would call it, but the information explosion that has occurred, I feel when I talk to the Marines that I talk to, is that they're looking for authenticity. They're trying to find that. See, before the information explosion, before you could pick up your phone and figure out what's really going on, it was inherent that the authority that talked to you knew what was going on. So if they told you, you're like, yeah, that's it. That's what it is. But now people are like, hey, let me check that out. I don't know if you know exactly what you're talking about. Right? And so what it does is it creates this environment where some of our young people, it's like having a Netflix account with no search engine. You just got a lot of movies to look at. Search engine is pretty cool, right? Hey, this is what we think you'll like. I'm like, yeah, thank you. Because there's like 1 million movies in there. If I have to scroll down all that. And so sometimes they're looking at us like, man, how much different stuff do I have to figure out? And I was like, I don't really know, man. You know, they need a search engine, man. They need somebody to help them out. So sometimes some of the guys that come to us, I know that they may not take it forever, but what we are is almost like a little search engine. Because here's what's happening. We don't take the values out of the Marine. We just ask them to subordinate those personal values to the core values of the institution while they're participating in it. So I want to make sure you understand what that means. That means whatever they grow up with, whatever they believe, I can't remove that. You know, that's like a Black Mirror episode or something, right? One of those horror movies, right, where I can't do that. All I'm asking them to do is subordinate whatever they feel personally to 3 values: honor, courage, and commitment. And if they can do that while they're on active duty, we get what we need from them. We get good from them. And they get the practice of acting good and doing good things, of which it's still their responsibility to grow and develop as individuals. So when I think about these things and why I'm sharing all this with you is that I think this is applicable in general. Now, we got great minds in this room on how that works in the pocket of your local community or whatever project you're working on, but I think the principles are the same. We're in the community is a mixture of personalities and values, of which the young population that we have is attempting to figure out how to manage those, but they're also figuring out how to grow and become capable and resilient individuals so that some of the principles that we use could be applicable under the right set of circumstances. if we can do that. With that being said, I'm going to stop and say, if you want to ask me any questions, I'm open to it. And I'm not going to dance or sing. I'm capable of singing, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not. All right. But I didn't want to wear you out because I know you've been sitting here for a little bit. With that being said, any questions? I spoke for about 20 minutes, and they had a little counter here, and they helped me out. Yes?
I've seen some recent podcasts or videos that talks about this newer generation coming up, this 18, 23-year-old.
Yep.
And they're saying that they have a ton of camaraderie, that against popular belief that it's actually a great generation of the folks that are coming through. Can you speak to that?
Yes. So what he has said for the group is he asked a question. His question was, hey, I've heard through podcasts that this generation coming up is great at camaraderie. I would agree. What I tell my Marines is this. Here's what we want to do. Because we want to do revisionist history on ourselves, we always say that the next generation sucks. That's what we do. Right? But we did. We weren't so good. The strengths of each generation are different. What I feel like is that the generation that we are receiving now is more accustomed to generating relationships, not necessarily deep ones, but they're attaching really easy. They attach really easy. When you come to a recruit graduation, you would think after 13 weeks of a drill instructor yelling at you, what I do when I watch the platoons is I watch to see whether they run to their families or they contract. And just this past Friday, one of the platoons just hugged each other and stood together, and the families came out of the stands to go grab their loved ones because they were just hanging with each other. They didn't go. So under stress and strain, we do see that they will create relationships. I think what they struggle with is the interaction piece in an interpersonal reaction, not the connecting with. It's getting to there. If that makes sense? That's what we've seen. So I want to make sure you know everything I'm saying is just, it's almost like just raw scientific, less than scientific observation, not necessarily a statistical model to describe. But we do see that there is a correlation between the relationships that people establish with one another and their resiliency. Y'all know we've had suicide issues in the military. We just recently did a deep study in the Marine Corps, and one of the things they did from the data pool is they discovered that the best weapon against that was meaningful relationships. Meaningful relationships and higher purpose. Believing you're tying into something that is larger than you. In the military, in the Marine Corps, I should say, we call that spiritual fitness. When you hear that term, we're not saying everybody's got to go to church. What we're saying is spiritual as in your spirit, you believing that you are tied into something larger than yourself, that you have a meaningful existence. And the combination between that and meaningful relationships, we do have data to tell us that when that happens, there's a large reduction in the ability, or I shouldn't say the ability, but a reduction in the propensity towards suicidal ideations and conditions. I knew you weren't going there, but it was an opportunity because it came in my mind. All right. Well, yeah, got some back here, yes.
Yeah, two questions. So, in the civilian world...
He's got a mic for you, if you want. I think they're recording it. That's
Great,
the only reason
thanks.
why. Yeah.
Incredibly impressive, and it's a thrill to be in the room with you. In the civilian world, what's the equivalent of the yelling you do? I can't yell at my people the way you do. And my second question is, what's the secret of keeping that shirt looking so crisp?
Okay. So So the shirt, I have on what's called shirt stays that pull it down so that it doesn't sit up. You know, you can buy those anywhere. And I have to wear those or I would get in trouble. Now, as it relates to the equivalent of yelling, just so you understand, the yelling is not to drive them to do the thing. The yelling is to simulate the conditions under which they would have to execute the task, which would be chaotic. I think that the equivalent that you have to reach for is not necessarily the yelling to motivate, but the circumstances by which they can try, fail, and try again is what I think is much more important out of the analogy that you are creating. In other words, the recruits that I have sign up to get yelled at. We do a community event called the Boot Camp Challenge, and I will have people similar to the age of the people in this room who will come up to me and say, can y'all please yell at me? They want the full experience, right? They want it. So the yelling, I'll be honest, this is seriously a heart attack. I was having a conversation with an Air Force counterpart, and I told him, I said, we can't be softer at boot camp or the recruits would revolt. They've signed up to believe they're going through something hard because they want it to be hard and they want to win at the end and say, I went through the hardest training. So it's not about, but that's the reason why I bring this up is that they volunteered for that. You might be dealing with people who aren't volunteering for that. You know what I'm saying? They may be volunteering for a different kind of motivation, right? Or is that, yeah, we're good. If we're good, I mean, I'm not gonna, I'm just answering questions. Yeah.